Okay, so The Bad Batch Episode 2 Cut and Run has officially come out. I have just watched it. It's like I just finished watching it, and I'm going to do a quick review here and just kind of a small breakdown of what the episode was and what happened in it. It's kind of what I did with the premiere, and the premiere had a lot more happen in it than this episode, but this episode, I guess it was alright. It wasn't that exciting. Like, it was actually pretty boring, in all honesty. It doesn't mean it was bad. Okay, bad and boring don't necessarily go together. It can be a good episode, and it could be a bore. And this one was definitely boring. I felt myself pretty bored compared to the last one. Now, of course, the last one is the premiere. They gotta throw in all the big crazy stuff, but this one was a much lesser episode. Like, not a lot happened, but the one big thing that did happen is we finally got to see Cut Lawquane again, who were in the J-19. I don't remember the name of the planet, if that was or not, but they went to J-19 and they met up with Cut Lawquane, which we expected. But we learned a little bit in the story, but we didn't necessarily do a whole lot. The story honestly didn't really progress at all, really, in this episode. But essentially, they land on the planet, and Omega is kind of like the main focus of this episode, honestly, along with Cut Lawquane. So they end up on the planet, and Omega is finally on a real planet. So she essentially, is jumping around and, discovering an actual real, dirt planet for once. She's been on Camino her whole life. So, I mean, we got that scene, which was fine. It wasn't that bad. But we do run into Cut Lawquane. They go to his little hut or cabin or whatever he's got set out there, and he's got his wife with his kids there. And this is what we saw again in the Clone Wars earlier on, seasons ago now. Like, early on in the Clone Wars show, we did see Cut Lawquane with Captain Rex and his squad, and we're finally seeing him again, which is really cool. I think it's really cool that we're seeing him again. It's just a character you never think you'd see again, because he's kind of like a side character that just kind of showed up and disappeared. But we do see him again. It's kind of what we expected once they said where they were going. So it's actually really cool to see a reappearance of Cut, because he's an interesting character. And there's one thing they didn't explain about him, though, and they go around the table and they talk to Cut and about what happened, and Cut ended up explaining to the Bad Batch that he actually ran into Captain Rex. Captain Rex had actually just been there like days earlier before the Bad Batch, and had told him about the clones turning and the inhibitor chip in their heads. And they never explained what happened to Cut's inhibitor chip and what exactly happened with Cut, because you would assume that Order 66 would have initiated in his head as well. Now, there's not Jedi around him. He's not in the war, but you would think maybe his mentality, his thinking changed, but it seems like he's pretty normal. So I don't know if they took his chip out. Maybe they took his chip out with Rex there. But either way, like, they never really explained what they did. It just went on like, his chip never ended up doing anything to him. It's almost like he never had a chip. That's how he acted. But they never explained that. I don't know if we ever will hear that explanation, but we're just going to assume that his chip just didn't work. I don't know. I would assume he had a chip, but in the episode, essentially, it's just him. Cut Lawquane just wants to get off the planet because the Empire is now restricting their control over planets. They have already begun that, restrictive control. They're trying to they're trying to bring order to the galaxy. That's the whole idea behind the Empire. So they're bringing this hold on all these planets, and now Cut wants to get out of the planet with his family before the Empire's grip on the planet becomes even stronger. So this scene right here, I believe this is a character we're going to see more and more of in the future. Actually, I don't know if that's actually him or not, but there was a Black Series action figure of him that was revealed recently, and it's like an Imperial officer or whatever his name is. I don't even know what his name was, but I believe we're going to see more of this guy. I think. I could be wrong, but there's just like an officer here, guy talking over a hologram over the town here, and it's just, explaining the Empire and what they're going to do and how great they are. And yeah, the Empire is in control, and it's weird to see clone troopers the bad guys now, because the Clone Wars, you follow the entire Clone Wars series, you follow the clones, and they're these heroes that you care for, and you get these feelings for, and you have so much emotion in the Clone Wars show. And then once you transition to the Bad Batch, the only clones you have emotion for is essentially the Bad Batch. The Bad Batch are the only good clones you're really following now. And the clones are just stormtroopers. They're stormtroopers that sound like clone troopers, because that's literally all they are at this point. They're the bad guys. They're not like nice people anymore. It seems like these chips completely changed their thinking more than just Order 66. It made them complete. They're just mean. They're just very, very mean. They're like stormtrooper mentality now. That's pretty much all it is. But again, I said Omega was kind of like the big focus of the episode. You know, they go ahead and explain kind of the Hunter and Omega dynamic of like father and daughter type of thing, or uncle, and I don't know. They're trying to explain this relationship between the two, and you know how Hunter should care for Omega. And then Omega, of course, got herself into some, you know, danger as a child would. They don't listen, and then they get themselves into trouble with, like, you know, the animals out and about on the planet. Just watch the episode. Not a whole lot happens, but essentially she's just, you know, thinking about where her place is with the Bad Batch, and you know what she should be doing, and she's just trying to understand things. As she's on the ship trying to kind of understand things, she's off on the side. Tech and Echo actually come up with a plan to go and get the codes, the clearance codes or whatever that the Bad Batch or Cut needs to get off the planet, because now the Empire is implementing all these codes, so they need to go and get these codes to essentially get on a ship to get out of the planet. So they come up with this plan to actually have their ship taken into like the docking bay or whatever in the town, and then they're inside the facility there of the Imperial facility, and then they can get in and, you know, take the codes, get the clearance codes, and then they can give it to Cut and get his family out of there. So that's kind of the whole plot of the episode, is just getting Cut off the planet. So not a whole lot happens for the Bad Batch story overall, but eventually Omega ends up running off with the codes and delivers them directly. So I mean, I don't know how to feel about Omega. I mean, in this episode she's not too annoying. I've seen more annoying characters in Star Wars, so I mean, she's alright. She's not that bad, but essentially the clones just running around being the bad guys now. They end up getting into a little bit of trouble, and they essentially get noticed. I mean, obviously it's only inevitable. It's going to happen eventually, but they get noticed, and then Hunter lets Omega know that he wants Omega to go with Cut and his family because he thinks it's the best for her. And at kind of around this point, I'm noticing there's a lot of similarities between Hunter and Omega and Din Djarin and Grogu, or Baby Yoda in The Mandalorian, because he's sending off Omega to go live a better life, and that's essentially what Mando or Din Djarin tried to do in season 1 of The Mandalorian with Baby Yoda or Grogu. He tried to leave Baby Yoda with the villagers in season 1 and for a better life, because he didn't want to deal with, you know, raising that child or dealing with that child. And that's kind of the whole similar storyline there, and that's kind of what I'm getting off of this relationship. So I don't know if they're trying to replicate that or not. I do hope they kind of go in a different direction, because it feels very similar right now. But essentially Omega ends up running off from Cut's family, and she doesn't want to leave. She wants to stay with the Bad Batch. Obviously, I never thought they would have actually sent Omega off. There's a little bit ending there where Cut is almost noticed by the clone troopers, but then they run off to, you know, try and fight off the Bad Batch. But they almost noticed Cut, but it was a very interesting little dynamic there. It wasn't too interesting, but in the end, Cut did get away with his family. I don't know if we'll see him again. And in the end, of course, Omega and Hunter have a discussion about she wants to be with the Bad Batch, not with Cut. She chose to be with them, and that's what she wants to do. So yeah, I explained a lot, but really not a lot happened at all. I mean, honestly, I could have explained this much quicker. I really wanted to go in a little bit of detail here, but the latest episode, I hate using the word filler. I really do hate using the word filler. It was almost filler. There was a little bit of storyline there that you could take from it, like the Captain Rex thing and maybe the inhibitor chips, and that's about it. I mean, maybe the Hunter and Omega relationship a little bit got developed a little bit more, but besides that, there wasn't a whole lot in this episode. I was expecting some slower episodes in this show. I mean, it is one of the animated series. They tend to do that in these ones. Not that they're bad, they tend to do it. It was a good episode, it just was boring. It was honestly really boring. It goes by pretty quick, but it's pretty boring. So, good episode, just not that exciting at all. And that's all I really got to say about it. Just looking forward to next week. I hope next week is a little more exciting, but we'll have to wait and see.